Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Design Sense with my co-host in blue today, Mr. Bill Elson, looking very summery, my friend.
Thank
How are you?
you. Thank you, Rad. Nice to see you again.
You too.
Marie, yes.
Yes. And so who do we have behind us? I mean, I love this backdrop, right?
Yes,
It sounds and looks like we're going to be having a very fun guest. So who do we have?
we do have a very fun guest. Maria Killam is a internationally sought after color expert. She gives classes on how to become a color expert. She's worked for a variety of international paint companies. She's a design blogger, an author, a trainer, a decorator, and a stylist. She has a blog.
Mary, sorry, hold on a second. Studio phone rings. We don't have any calls coming in yet. So,
She's very interesting, very fun, very upbeat, and she has a lot to share with us. So I'm
yeah,
very happy to have her on the show.
so we're going to bring her on. I just want to mention to everybody too, check out her website, and we'll mention it again while we have her on. But Maria Killam, KILLAM.com. It really is a great resource. I was just browsing through it. It's got a lot of, very well organized and very informative and fun, actually, stuff on there for
Yes,
people.
she has a special color wheel she invented, or created, complex print.
Can you hear me, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Looked like we had a little bit of technical difficulty there. Maria, are you on with us? I can see you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello,
Yes.
Maria.
Yes, we can hear
Hey,
you.
I just
Nice
put
to see you.
my other mic on there.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, you're coming in loud and clear.
Great.
We were telling people to go to visit your website, mariakillam.com,
Yes.
and Bill was starting to talk about the color wheel, so we
Your
got
complex stream color wheel. So anyway, so tell us how you started with this incredible knowledge and with your eyesight of color.
Well, the sort of shortened version that I tell everyone is that I was in corporate in my 20s. Yeah, in my 20s. And it's been so long, that's so long ago now. But anyway, and I was suffering badly. And I decided, I had to be creative or die. So I started up a business doing, redesign, which is what we did before staging was invented.
Mm.
So I had turned 30 and I was just like, I need to, do something creative. So I started up this business doing redesign, and I put an ad in the Yellow Pages, and the ad said, use what you have to create affordable, incredible interiors. And at the bottom, I wrote expert color consultation. Well, I mean, I had done like one color theory course in my life at that point. I really no other design courses. I just, I'd been moving furniture around and helping my friends for years. But so then, so the ad worked, and I got this call from this woman who said, I'm trying to pick a beige for my living room, and I see that some have pink undertones and some have green undertones. Can you help me with that? And I said, absolutely. And I had no idea what she was talking about. So I thought I better figure this out. So I found this, I found a design or a color course online, and no, just leave it there. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My
Live podcast. That's what happened.
my computer might die, so I thought I better get my cord in here. Okay, sorry about that. So, so I found this color course online, or I mean in San Francisco, and I flew down, and for 5 days I painted and learned about color, and learned that the color is always described in 3 ways. It's always cool or warm, clean or dirty, light or dark. And I came home and I decided I was going to be an internationally known color consultant. And, fast
Here you
forward,
are.
I stuck it on a sticky note, put it up on my mirror, and who knew that I'd get there through writing a blog called Color Me Happy. So, so then I, fast forward, I got myself a job in a paint store where I was able to do 4 or 5 consultations per week. I mean, back then, color consulting was kind of a novelty, I mean, is that, okay, just a minute. that 20 years ago now? Or is that, yeah. I guess it is. But anyway, now everybody's a color consultant, right? But back then, people would come in the paint store and, you know, and they'd hire me on the spot from talking to me, you know, about their colors. And it was great because I got all this experience just going into people's homes and picking color for them. And although they would ask me all kinds of design questions, they weren't waiting for me to have the answer, because really I was just there to pick paint colors for them. And so since one of the things I'd learned in my course in San Francisco was, you know, she would paint up like a 5 foot by 5 foot, you know, big sample and leave it in people's homes. Well, I couldn't do that. Right. So I started painting up these big samples, which I sell on my website. So there's a white, but you know, they're like at 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17, whatever they are. And so I started painting those up and taking them with me. And it was from using these samples over and over again in people's homes that I started to see that, oh, funny, you know, beige, like it always comes back. You know, beige was the thing back then, right? 20 years ago, before the gray trend. And so, but beige always seemed to come back to pink beige, green beige, yellow beige. And so I started to that was sort of my first aha moment about the fact that, you know, and then I started to curate the colors. You know, I noticed which colors always worked, like over and over and over again. And that's the reason why the 50 colors and then the 50 core collection that I sell for Benjamin Moore, and then the foundation for Sherwin-Williams. That is why those sets of colors are so powerful, because if you need a neutral, first of all, you certainly can't pick one from a tiny little sample. Second of all, you know, painting samples up on the wall, you will lose your mind, and your client will get immediately frustrated and, you know, and lose patience with that, right? So, but having the big samples, and then, you know, basically you need the way to choose neutrals properly is you have to continue to compare. I mean, when people come to my live courses, you know, they really understand, they start to understand how you choose color, how you get it right. And you do that by comparing, because you can't just throw up, you know, a bunch of colors and start testing. You need to be able to like really narrow it down. And so my curated colors do that. So if you've noticed that you've got, you know, like green gray sofa, you just pull out all your green gray samples and plunk them down and see which one looked the best. And right now, of course, you know, I just sent out this morning an update to both of my ebooks, How to Choose Paint Colors and White is Complicated, because one of the things that I've noticed, that we've noticed in the last, you know, well, I mean, I've been picking pale colors forever, but for the last 2 or 3 years, the minutia of like the, you know, the palest of colors, that's what people want, is just the lightest of colors. They just want white. I mean, people, if they don't know what they're doing, are just slapping up white, right? Art gallery white on the walls, whether they got a Tuscan house or not, whether it works or not, you know, I'm sure, Bill, that you're noticing that, right? And so what we're doing, what I'm doing with my clients is really, you know, if they have a house that has 0 white in it, you cannot paint your walls art gallery white. You now need to look at the palest of beiges. Yeah. So the palest of pink beige, green beige, yellow beige, orange beige is now what I'm calling a complex cream. And what that is it's a cream that it's got more pigment in it than just ivory white or you know, alabaster with Sherwin-Williams, right? So the cream has more pigment in it. It's a richer cream because it's the palest of beige. And so that is now the latest update that I've sent out with both of my ebooks, because that's all anyone's really interested in, is the lightest of colors.
Yeah. And you know what I find so interesting about clients is, for some reason, they think that we as designers should be able to walk into their home and immediately pick. And I try to explain to them, you know, we're like musicians. We can see color the way musicians can hear music and tones and notes. You don't just walk into a recording studio and record Thriller or We Are the World in a minute. Okay? You know, and I will always tell clients, like you said, you have to paint up swatches, you know, blocks of color and live with it for 2 or 3 days. What? So you can see it during the day and night because color
Right.
changes. And they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
They're always in some sort of hurry for paint. I think because they feel like they accomplished something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't matter how many times I say it on the blog, because I mean, I've been writing this blog now for almost 12 years, and I think, I don't know, am I at 16 or 1700 blog posts? But so I've said it so many times that, you know, you got to start with the art, you got to start with the
Yeah.
fabric, you know, but people think that if I just get the paint color, then it's downhill from there. Like, people just automatically think that that's what there is to do.
Yeah.
Well, Maria,
Home Depot, from those ads at Home Depot or Sherwin-Williams, you know, come in and pick this is a project you could do in one afternoon, is paint your dining room.
Well,
Right.
because a lot of people actually look at it as a task to cross off the list, and it's
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
not regarded as a layer. Like, they will take a lot longer picking between beige, cappuccino, latte, and God knows what on a sofa throw pillow, then they will basically the paint color that's acting as a backdrop to all of that as a layer. It is really interesting because a lot of people, honestly, whether it's a remodel, whether it's a ground up, whatever, it's one of those things where it's like, well, just give me the specs. And then there's also that competing element of cost, because the pricing from the contractor sometimes, or whoever the builder is, maybe, well, we've accounted for 3 colors. Like, you know, there are some of these things that, well, you'll never need more than 3 colors. Yeah, but again, that powder, that kids' room, you know, you even if it's gradations of that gray or that beige, it really makes a difference, because that side of the house may be hit by light differently than the front side of the house, and
Sure.
you know, and you may use that room differently because it's maybe a respite or a retreat for you, and it's going to be mostly accent lighting versus task lighting. So it's fascinating how, for something as regarded as such as just a task item, that it has such power and such a reason for people to have fear. I mean, because, you know, I mentioned it to you before we started. I said, you know, people actually are paralyzed by picking a color and putting on the wall.
They are.
And so let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's as old as time, right? I mean, I've been doing this for almost 25 years, and it's like, I can't even remember whether it's commercial, hospitality, residential, it doesn't matter. People have this irrational fear of putting a color on a wall.
Well, you know, one of the things that I have noticed over my 20 years of being in this business is that people can wrap their heads around, you know, I'm going to put crown molding in this living room, or, you know, like they can, you know, or I'm going to redo this mantle that I really hate, or, oh, it's, you know, got this awkward thing. Like, I was in a house, you know, I was in an apartment where this woman was going on and on about her fireplace, and I'm looking around at her house, and I can see that, you know, she needs everything, right? She's, you know, what she's had in there is probably 15, 20 years old, and she's acknowledging that as well. But I know now, I've been in her house for an hour or whatever, and she's talking about her mantle, and I'm like, you know what? Like, fix your mantle if you have money to burn. You know, like, you need to decorate here. What you need here is a look and a feel. You need a new sofa. You need, you know, curtains. You need a rug. Like, you know, once you have all those things in place, you know, the lack of crown molding, you won't even notice that.
Right.
Because now you're going to have a look and a feel. And so
you won't even notice that mantle sticks out because you've decorated the house.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
It just won't bother you anymore, because now you're going to be looking at other things in your house that just fill you with joy. You know, I was in a client's house once as well, and I tell this story in my workshops where, you know, so they had laid out all their samples, the husband and wife. They'd been, you know, living with all this hand-me-down furniture, and the wife had been home for 6 months with a brand new baby. And so they had all their tiles, everything. And so that was when I was working in the, you know, paint store. So they had me just come over for a consult to like help them, you know, okay, what's the color of what should my countertop be, and what should my cabinet color be? So I pick out everything for them. And then, you know, they're on a budget, they're a young couple, and I help them, you know, we sit down at the end and I help them cherry pick, you know, IKEA, and put together their, you know, their living room so that they could get a new little space. So then we're walking to the front door, and the wife comes running up, and she goes, oh, just just one more thing. She said, okay, see these like angled, like the walls here that lead into the laundry room right here? She said, can I put like a loft door in front of that? And I was like, maybe, sure, okay, you maybe could. I mean, depending on what it is. I mean, it's more of a contemporary look. I'm not really, sure if that would be the right thing for this house. But I said, here's the thing. You have been at home for 6 months with a brand new baby. You don't have a single room in this house right now where you can just sit down and go, I love this house. And so, no, do not spend your money on random loft doors.
Maria, it's funny because
that's what we call design sense. If it doesn't make sense, don't do it.
Exactly. That's right.
It doesn't make sense. Don't spend dollars and cents on it. I mean, it's very true. People, it's fascinating what people will attach to. That it's the old. I always make reference to this. People want those fast answers. They don't understand. And I think anybody, whether it's interior designers or graphic artists or whatever, sometimes people see the product, the outcome, the output, and they don't realize what it goes into it, because good, bad, or whatever, we make it look like it's something that is easy.
Right.
It isn't. We lose sleep over it. We wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go, wait, hold on a second, that wasn't right. I'm going to do this one, right? We sweat over the little details. They see the final product.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating to me, that old episode of Friends holds true, where people walk by the whether it was Pottery Barn or whatever, a storefront, and buy the whole living room with everything in it. And they basically have a unique environment, and then they go to 3 other houses that's exactly the same setup, right? So what you were saying about, like having an environment that is a reflection of who you are also requires you to basically get a little bit more comfortable with who you really are. I mean, I'm looking at this picture behind me, Maria, and it's really funny. First of all, kudos on the selection of the chair. One of my very favorite all-timers, right? And I loved it. I love the choice of leather for it. Unusual, perfect. I love it. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, yes, Maria is a color theorist, but she's also a color therapist. And that's a therapist chair, right? And Color Me Happy is the name of the therapy session that we're basically having. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think there's a lot of truth in whether, if you'd really take the effort and the time and you get a little intimate with what you like and what things make you happy and bring you joy, that you can bring those into your home. And actually, probably one of the least costly ways to do it is color.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, sometimes people get confused when, I can't remember what conversation I was having, but she's like, why all this talk about neutrals? Yeah, I was doing another podcast. She's like, and people are answering questions at the end. It was like a webinar. Anyway, she said, well, what about color? Well, yeah, I mean, so, 80% of the time, we are choosing a neutral usually for our clients, for the main spaces and stuff, because most people aren't painting their entire house just a kaleidoscope of colors. I mean, I think it's great, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that, but most people aren't doing that. So, but once you've got that neutral backdrop, which everyone's looking for, this is now the time when you need to pick your favorite color for your sofa, and that's what you need to do. I mean, one of the, people are drawn to my website because this whole conversation about getting your neutral right and undertones, and I don't feel crazy anymore now that I've hit your website, but everybody convinced me that I was wrong, and I saw green in that white for my, I had a woman that said, my boxes that, my cabinets were sitting in my dining room waiting to be installed. And I said, that white looks green. And the designer came over and the cabinet people came over and they said, oh no, it's fine. You're fine. It looks great. It'll be great once it's installed. Well, it got installed and
it wasn't great.
Sure enough, it was green because the cabinet maker had, the cabinet, they don't spray your cabinets using, Benjamin Moore or Sherwin-Williams. I mean, right? They're matching the color the best they could, and they had not matched the color well. So she ended up spending $5,000 to get it all repainted. So what people stay, with me because I talk about classic and timeless, in your hard finishes, that yes, your tiles in your bathrooms should be in the realm of white or cream. Yes, that encaustic tile that you're madly in love with right now is fabulous, but you know, it's got a shelf life. It's trendy, you know, I mean, and then the next trend comes along and then you fall in love with that tile. And now you're like, oh, I wish I would have waited and put that tile in my house. And, you know, and here's the thing, you know, I give advice to the person, you know, that has no idea what they're doing. You know, I know there's a lot of people that hit my website because I'm always talking about subway tile, right? People say, well, Maria, like, you know, like, what should I do with my backsplash? And I'm like, subway tile.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like it's over now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, because, but you know, it's like people can pick a tile on their own, you know, they don't need a designer to do that. And then people feel like their tile should be, you know, this like, I don't know, they feel like they should just be madly in love with all these expensive things they're putting in their house. And, you know, I just had a birthday and I was asking people, you know, like, what's the thing that you learned about from reading my website? And this one homeowner said, you know, like she said, I showed my daughter the tiles that I picked for my bathroom and they were all in just cream and solids. And she's like, that is so boring. And she's like, oh, Maria would love that because my whole thing is, you know, that boring is timeless, you know? And so I think that we all, like when we're young, right? All the millennials, they hit my site, I'm sure, and they think, yeah, this woman has zero creativity, like really subway tile, like
they
no.
Like you said, they want to love every little
thing. They think that it's about that
small item for the backsplash. Then you should go all the way up, you know. But like, I love what you said about the trends, and you know, we went from Tuscan to the urban farmhouse like overnight.
Yes.
It was
Trends are a 4-letter word as far as I'm concerned. Okay,
they are.
They're a 4-letter word. I mean, honestly, I think the saddest thing is that we as an industry are more willing to basically just fill somebody's homes with things rather than have that house be a reflection of who they are, which in some cases requires us to take the journey with them to help them find out about what that is. And you pointed out that this lady, for example, had just had a baby. You know, people go through certain points in their life, transition points, you know, defining moments in their life where they need to self-reflect again at where they're at, and to fill their house with stuff that has no emotional connection, that has no depth of meaning, has no soul. You end up with just basically a showroom full of expensive stuff that they overpaid for, that will basically be meaningless for them, and therefore something they will get no solace out of very quickly. And now we're moving on to the next order, and at some point we're at Home Goods and we're filling our shelves with that stuff.
I spend a lot of time helping people bring life to their gray on gray living rooms right now, right? And then some people, of course, still have the brown living. Everyone can't renovate every 10 years, right?
Maria,
so plenty of folks with brown furniture too, right?
They still have the avocado green and what was it? Gold. What was that? Avocado green and what gold? What was it?
I don't want to talk about how your living room looks like. Okay. No, but I would even say, you know, what you just said is that you help people work their gray and gray on gray of
bring life to it with color, right?
On living room, right?
Yeah.
I almost heard, before you said living room, I almost heard you say gray on gray, work the gray on gray in their life.
True.
Yeah.
Right. And based on what we were talking about before the show about the fact, I mean, I was astounded. Do you know how much time people, this was a study done by the EPA prior to the coronavirus situation. So if as much as what I'm about to tell you is amplify it now with the reality of sequestering, right?
Right.
People spend 90% of their life indoors. 90% of their lives indoors, according to the EPA. Okay, and that was basically a study based on air quality and so forth. That because I'm kind of expanding into that right now in terms of how can we basically better enhance somebody's environment, including some of the stuff that's non-seeable, non-visible, but equally as important. So imagine if that is the case, and your life is beige, and it's 90% is beige, right?
Yes.
I mean, I hate to use the word as an adjective, but if your life is beige.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because all the years that I rented living in a very expensive city in downtown Vancouver before I moved out to the country where we could afford to buy a house and renovate it from top to bottom. But all the years I spent renting, every time I would paint, you know, people would be like, why would you spend money on a rental? Well, but you know, if I make my home like a place that fills me with joy when I walk in the door, then
Yep.
guess what? I won't feel the need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on weekends away.
Right.
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 Like, I mean, my sister just, you know, they decided to rent a little cottage on an island that's like, you know, 3 hours from here. And she did that because she said, you know, she noticed that, you know, her and her husband, they went to Seattle and they dropped $3,000 one weekend. And she thought, you know, like, wow, that's kind of a lot. Like, you know, so then they decided to rent a little cottage where that could be their getaway. And so they wouldn't, you know, feel the need to be going out on these expensive weekends. And that's why I just think, really, like, how much does it really cost to paint a rental, especially if you're doing it? Who cares if it's a rental? You know, you now have a color in there that like you love, that's not the previous person's color. Because the days of like, you know, apartment white are over. Well, like, they're coming back now.
Navajo white or Swiss coffee, right?
Yeah. That's right.
So,
you know, so I just think, you know, so I really spend a lot of time helping people focus on how to get all their sort of hard finishes right, pick your classic and timeless. But now that you're decorating, you know, now this is when you need to bring the color in, because people love color. People, you know, will run up and take pictures of themselves and their family in front of colorful, fabulous buildings. They're not doing that in front of the you know, the brown building, the living room, the charcoal building. No one's like, let's get a picture here. No.
So what is this? I mean, you've been doing this, you said almost 20 years or so, right?
Yeah.
What is this thing that will not die, that this thing that is consistent, that defies generations, that defies geography, where people actually have a fear of color? They fear to incorporate it in their lives. I mean, they will spend $10,000 on a sectional, but they will not put a shade of beige different than the safe white or whatever on their walls. I'm sure it's something that you often encounter, right? What is it is it like primal? Is it, you know, from the days of the cave and cave paintings? I mean, I don't know. What is it? It makes no rational sense to me.
You know, I don't know if I have like a sort of standard answer to that. I mean, I think that people just, this is what I usually say.
My nursery when I was a baby was avocado green, and therefore I'm afraid of any shade that is not.
Yeah.
What is it?
No, but here's the thing. If you buy the wrong color, right, or you paint, you know, a room a color and it's wrong, right, you are running back to the paint store to like fix it, right? If you chose the wrong orange or the wrong green, or
you're admitting your failure.
The wrong neutral.
Yeah.
You put the wrong neutral up, or if you buy a sofa, and, you know, like, and it doesn't match, you can live with it. You know, it's just kind of there, right? But the wrong color, like, this has people freak out, and you know, this would have you running back to the paint store to buy a new gallon of paint if it's the wrong color. But neutrals, you know, I think that's the reason why people gravitate toward the world of safe.
Okay, so
safe is the key word.
I have two other questions. I have one that I have always wondered, I have no answer for, which is who the heck comes up with all those names?
Oh, the names of the paint colors.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I have the answer to that.
I mean, is there a wine party, a three drink minimum? Who comes up with these names? How are they developed? I mean, is it emotional? They sound like the naming seems emotional, like it's supposed to evoke some kind of connection on some level, right?
You know what? Yeah, I mean, you know, although when, for example, Benjamin Moore has a color called bleaker beige. I mean, that has caused more than one person to go like, is that really the color that you're giving me? Like bleaker beige, you know, so.
You don't really want me to buy this, right? That's why you called it.
Yeah, that's right. So, no, but I think what Benjamin Moore did at the time when they developed their new fan deck, like 20 years ago when they came out with the new one, they just sent it out to all the paint stores and had people kind of write down like what you know, what it evoked for them, you know. But and that's, I think, the reason why. Like, where's Sag Harbor? Where's that? Is that in New York?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, so there's a color called Sag Harbor Gray, which was probably chosen by somebody that worked in a paint store that was in New York, right? So like that. So that's yeah. But I mean, I did like that. There was that one study, do you remember it, where they actually took feminine colors like peach and pink, and then gave them like male, you know, sounding names, and to see if like men would then go ahead and buy them, and it worked.
Yep.
So names are powerful.
Yeah, the thing that's always fascinating with me with that is, and you mentioned Benjamin Moore, so I want to just take a minute and go on a little bit of tangent here, because we mentioned graphic artists. I do commercial hospitality work, and so as a result of that, we're always trying to connect brand and identity with the environment. And one of the things that we do is we incorporate that in terms of paint, color palette, and so forth. And it's everything from signage to print material, what have you. And it's very interesting, because as long as I've been doing this, as long as I've been advocating for this, people still don't do it right from the graphic side. Like, they will design the logo and they will pick the colors based on a CMYK palette. And then they will try to match it with a paint color that now has to be spray painted on the metal sign or incorporated into vinyl or what have you, where it is, or even more so, I want a laminate countertop that's going to match my accent color in my logo. Oh. And I always tell people, what you really got to do is work it backwards. Instead of using your Pantone color wheel or Pantone color fan, you should be using a paint manufacturer's fan. If you're wanting to incorporate it into laminates or what have you, select from existing, because otherwise you're doing custom runs, which if you're not big enough, that's going to be very costly.
Yes.
But it's fascinating to me, because other than Benjamin Moore, Maria, I don't know of any other company that actually will match a Pantone color to their paint. So can we talk about that a little bit? Because that is a real life scenario for designers, where we're basically asked to be complementary to a brand identity's deck in how we basically build the environment. Can we talk about some of those resources?
You know what? Actually, I don't get asked that very often. I mean, I don't think I've ever been asked that, because I didn't even know that Benjamin Moore matches Pantone colors.
They are the only company that I know of, and it is actually, you call them and it's at headquarters, and there's one guy that basically will get back to you, and they will try to match it, because everybody else, they don't. And so if you're going to want to incorporate that kind of approach into your design, I would say go to Sherwin-Williams, go to whoever, you know, and basically Bear, whatever, and work backwards. Like, work your paint colors into what then happens into your CMYK print material, because it's easier to do.
That's definitely the smarter way to go. Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, because I think it's something that doesn't get discussed enough, and it's fascinating, because when I would mention that to graphic artists, they would be like, the light would go on and go, oh, I didn't realize we could do it this way. We could reverse engineer it from a paint company's perspective. So again, you know, color is a very powerful tool in terms of marketing, in terms of, you know, unique value proposition, positioning your business. And it is something that obviously you need to be either very comfortable with, or reach out to people like yourself to basically get that guidance.
Yeah.
When NASA was studying to do the spaceships or the lunar landing, they hired a colorist, a color theorist, to help them with the colors in space, because color has a lot of profound psychological, I'm sure you know, influences on people. And I think that's one of the reasons why many people, 95% of the population, don't want a color on 4 or 3 walls of their space, because your eye is always looking at that. Maria, could you tell us about your color wheel? I'm really fascinated about the new color wheel with the complex frames.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm actually sold out of this wheel right now.
I want one.
It's available. It's available if you buy my color boards. It does
Your
come with my
seminar
phone.
in November.
Pardon me?
You're having a training in November in San Diego. I want to go to that.
Oh yeah. Well, I have wheels for my training.
Okay, great.
I just don't have them available on the website anymore. Yeah. Yeah, because what happened was when we printed the wheel, what we didn't realize is that the printing process is never, it's never accurate, right? Like if you look at like all the Fandex that, and when you go to a paint store and you're looking at a paint chip, I didn't know this until we went through this process. I didn't know that they're actually painted on there, right? And so my color wheel actually needs to be, the colors need to be painted. So we're looking into that now, but it's expensive. I mean, I'm not printing as many as a paint store would. So, but we're in the process of sort of figuring that out right now. But yeah, so what I did when I launched this I think it was September, I actually gave people the paint chips. I didn't give it to them, but gave them the list so that they could go and then doctor it up themselves and put the paint chips on there, the corresponding paint chips, so that then it would actually be an accurate tool.
Right.
Because it's not completely, it's not totally accurate yet because it's printed.
So you have 5 beiges, 3 grays, and a taupe.
Yes.
Because a lot of people know, like you were talking about the yellow beiges, orange beige, gold beige, that those undertones are in there, which I think is very interesting. And you mentioned about the cabinets that your client had that had green in them. Like a lot of people can't see that.
Yeah, I mean,
Does this help?
I talk about lighting a lot on my blog because so many people are so quick to blame the light when the color goes wrong.
Sure.
And in my experience, it's because they've just picked the wrong neutral. I mean, they've just, or they haven't even picked a color that relates to anything in the room at all, or the room is not decorated yet, right? So if you paint a room that has nothing in it yet, maybe your old furniture, and you go ahead and paint the room some random grayish or even a shade of white or whatever, because everybody just wants, everyone wants white now because, I mean, I think that the farmhouse trend and the gains were a big piece of that. But I also believe that it's because, we did beige for like 30 years, right? We did went through the sage green, trend, and then, in the 90s, and then then the Tuscan brown trend, and gray came along. And it was just too soon after 10 years of gray, when we just got out of the Tuscan trend, to go back to beige. And that's why I believe that everyone just realized, hey, white is the freshest and newest way to go. And that is why, I mean, I have never seen a trend take over as powerfully as this one. And how you know that is you drive through a neighborhood where a new house is being built, and 99% that house is either going to be white or cream. The 1% is black, right? I've never seen so many neighborhoods. Like there's a really cute neighborhood like 20 minutes from here that has all these colorful homes. Like it's super cute. And I'm like, this is so great. I love all the color. Then they've got this new section that's just being built. Guess what color it is? It's
white.
The whole thing. Color is now gone. Because all anybody wants right now is white, because it feels the freshest. And
I am seeing, though, with that new construction, especially on the smaller, maybe subdivisions or smaller like clusters, what do they call them? Infill projects almost. It's interesting because I'm starting to see both in texture and color, another layer being added to what it to me has become almost like, oh my God, just can we stop now? Black, gray, white, like, 2 shades of white, light, 2 shades of gray. But I'm starting to see things like, wood fencing, like modernized, but wood fencing. Right. I'm starting to see maybe
to bring the warmth in.
The warmth in, right? Exactly. Maybe some even some ledger stone siding, starting to be incorporated in. So it's not so monochromatic. Up till that point, all I was seeing was monochromatic with maybe a splash of color in something like a throw pillow or maybe an accent ottoman, right, something of that nature. But it was still trying to sort of playing it that safe, where it's not clinical, not medical, but it's trying to be like modern and minimalist. But modern and minimalist only goes so far without it becoming soulless. Like you have to be really good at mixing that line to make it work.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, I mean, I had someone say to me the other day, Maria, like both my neighbors are building a white house on the left and on the right, and I'd like white as well, but can you make it look different?
Oh God.
And you know, stone is a lot of times, in my opinion, not the answer, because people stick it up in weird places. You know,
it's not applied correctly. Yeah.
They slap it on the bottom of the house because they think that's somehow going to upgrade it. And you know, my thing is, I'm back to decorating the outside. I'm back to, you know what, like you need some landscaping that's going to like make this house look amazing, right? Yeah. Just like your room with that most fabulous color in the world that you think that you've spent hours and hours and days and you know, trying to figure out. If it has no furniture in it, we're still depressed, right? Like, you know, like, I mean, I was accused on one of my posts of like trying to trick people into buying lamps. Because, you know, I believe that every room, as I'm sure you all do too, should have a minimum of, you know, like definitely your living room should have like a minimum of 8 lamps, right? And like people were actually leaving comments like because I had a before and after of the before was taken when the room was when it was dark outside, and so then the after, of course, was taken during the day after I did this little makeover. And so people were like, "Ha ha, you guys are fools, you know, like you can see that the before pictures were taken in the dark." Because I went on and on about lamps and how I'd stuck one in the kitchen and I put a couple in it was a cute little tiny little, you know, space. But anyway, people were actually like, they were like, she's trying to trick me into buying a lamp. And I'm like, you know what? Yes, I will go down as a lamp swindler. I have no problem with that.
Like, well, you know, it's just like you have to, you're exactly right. You have to take lamps into a client's house.
Yes.
Plug them in.
Yeah.
On the empty end tables behind the sofa over in the corner by the fireplace, so they can see how the room should really be lit, and then they go, oh wow, it's like, oh, I should have had a V8. Yes. Yeah, it just
no, you don't need 8, you know, recessed lights in your ceiling in your living room. No.
Right, but what you're talking about, Maria and Bill, it's just the same. It's just sort of that idea you mentioned before. It's that layering. I mean, it's like almost like a recipe, right? I mean, any fool can spend a lot of money on expensive ingredients. That never makes for a meal. I think how you cook it, how you layer your ingredients, how you do it, and the beauty of that is you can give. I mean, it's like those shows, right? We each one of us can be given the same amount of ingredients, same variety of ingredients, and we would combine it differently if we allow ourselves to come through that. And I think that's where lighting, the paint, the fabric, the sort of that sexiness of the texture layering on what is on that pillow, what is on that seat, what is underfoot, you know, all of that. And at the end of the day, it really is to have that sense of a sanctuary or a retreat where you can actually, for whatever the function may be, whether it's work, whether it's end of day respite, whether it's entertaining, that space functions for you, not necessarily even the designer. And I think a lot of good designers, it's like, yes, they're bringing in their sensitivities to the use of space, spatial allocation, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's providing a space for the customer, for the client, to feel comfortable in their own skin, really, right? I mean,
it's like recycling, like Maria said, you know, after she was at the client's house for an hour.
She is a therapist, Bill, right there. See, she's in therapy, sure.
Someone wanted the new mantle, and like you said, after you realize, no, fix the rest of the place first, then get the new mantle.
So let's talk about this. I kind of told you in advance about this. Let's talk about the fact that a lot of people have been sequestered in their homes. They've been spending a lot of time in spaces that they did not spend as much time in.
Yes.
Are you seeing from your consultancy, from people coming to you, are you seeing a different approach to how they're dealing with their spaces, maybe as a result of this sort of, overexposure almost? Are they more open to basically making change? What are you seeing from this due to COVID?
I mean, I can't say that I've seen any big shift in terms of, oh, I want more color now or something. But I think that we are getting more people, like they'll buy a paint color and they'll consider the add-ons, because the add-ons are like, a rug or throw pillows. And then, they'll
Lamp.
think about it and they'll come back and, I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, or a lamp, right?
Yeah, that's right. They'll come back and they'll be like, oh, like, I think I want to add on the throw pillows, because they're sitting there looking at their room, because a lot of people think that, if they hire Maria Killam, the true color expert, to pick up, paint color for me, like, I'm good, I'm golden. But, the paint color cannot do all the heavy lifting, right? We need throw pillows in there. Like, I mean, it does amaze me, like, whenever designers say things like, they talk about throw pillows, I always think that, you see that and you think, oh, that's such cliched advice. But truly, I mean, never underestimate the power of a throw pillow. I mean, it adds color to your space. It pulls the room together. It can make like old and new pieces kind of come together as well. Because sometimes, you'll get something new and you've still got those old colors, maybe from the Tuscan trend. Maybe you've got a gold sofa and now you bring some gray in. Well, now you need the pillow now, or the rug that pulls both those colors together and then maybe adds some color to it as well. So, yeah.
The layering that, like Raad spoke about, you have to layer the color, layer the texture for the psychologically, visually, for the client to really get an idea of how beautiful the room can bring, and the room can bring them.
It really is the recipe, honestly. And I think the difference between designers and it's a form of creative expression. I think it's just like a chef. Like, you could have chefs side by side, give them the same ingredients, and you versus me may what am I thinking about? Like, you may actually like one chef's dish better than the other, right? And you might in fact like the other chefs versus the one that I like. And it's really interesting because it's really that personal. And I think when we try to, a lot of people look at it as an afterthought. So, it's like I said at the beginning, it's a to-do item on a checklist, right?
Right.
But when you think that you spend 90% of your time indoors, the spaces in which you spend time have a very strong direct impact to the quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as I had said before we got on the call, I mean, my e-design department, which I have 4 staff working in, putting together the presentations.
Right.
It is like gone gangbusters. I mean, we had a record month for the month of May. I mean, and and at the beginning of this whole thing, I was worried. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I thought, is everything going to tank, right? But truly, my company has been in a position already in this like e-design world.
Right.
I teach, how to see color online on the 3rd day of my live workshops. And I mean, that's where color's going. We're already shopping for everything online.
Yep.
So how do you know that color is actually going to be right when it comes in the door?
Right.
Well, hot tip I'll give you right now is you got to put it all together. You have to stick it all on a board, right? We all do that anyway as designers, but when you're shopping, to actually know that fuchsia chair is going to match the pillow in the room, you need to put everything together on the same board. So for example, my tech guy said, I'm putting in new flooring in my new wood look flooring. He lives in Arizona. So I said, oh, well, don't do anything without asking me. So he sent me 5 links. He said, these are the floors we're looking at. And he already knows my whole spiel on classic and timeless hardwood, which is medium brown or the really pale, pale ochre with something like that, right?
Right.
So that's it. Those 2, that's it. You go with charcoal, you go with like espresso brown, that immediately sticks you inside of a trend. And so people know that from reading my blog. So he's like, okay, here are my 5 links. So I looked on all 5 links. I eliminated 2 of them because one was too pink and one was too blotchy. And then I put the 3 tile samples that I liked onto like one board so that you could see them all together. Right. I said, okay, now which one do you like? And he's like, well, isn't that just simple and easy?
Mm-hmm.
you know, because you could immediately now compare the three and, okay, this one has more knots in it, or this one is more, you know, yellow versus green versus whatever, right? So it's the same with when you're shopping for anything online. You know, the quick way to do that is start pinning things up onto Pinterest so you can see them all together. But, you know, then the second step would be to stick them all on a PowerPoint presentation or something all on a board so that you can actually see that, hey, that throw pillow looks like it matches.
I think clients actually, it's very difficult for me to look at color on online. I really need to see it in person. Then I can see all those subtleties of the undertones of the pink, the gray, or the blue. So I always urge clients to do that.
Yes.
And, you know,
I mean, that's the perfect world for sure. But with all the shopping going, there's so much online shopping that we're doing now, right? That like, and I think you have to, you know, I had someone send me a question like that today. She's like, Maria, I loved your exterior masterclass. It was amazing. And she said, like, how can I like start to train my eye on whether I'm seeing taupe or whether I'm seeing pink beige? Like, I don't feel like I, you know, I can see them yet. Well, you know, if you're brand new to my work, what you really need to familiarize yourself with is really the colors in my system, because those are the colors that I use over and over and over again. When I pick colors for exteriors, interiors, it doesn't matter. You have that curated select collection of like 100 colors. And like really, you know, 80% of the time, 90% of the time, like that's really all you need, because I picked the best, you know, green grays, the best blue grays, the best taupes. You know, all the taupes beyond the taupes that I've chosen go too pink or too purple, and you would just never ever use those taupes. So once you know what mine are, you got to start practicing with the big boards, you know, matching colors wherever you go. Like you have to train your eye. Like, so, because the way I trained my eye, you know, was basically working in the paint store. People would come in with their tile samples and their, you know, pillow samples and whatever. And I got to the point where I could just turn around and pick the color chip out and go, there you go. And it was the perfect match.
Well, I mean, it's like saying to Barbara Streisand, how can you teach me how to sing like you?
Exactly.
Or to Andrea Bocelli, can you teach me how to sing like you?
Yeah.
No.
Like,
I can give you the skills and I can tell you the notes, but I can't, because you're the one that can see. You have the eye.
Absolutely. And you need to train your eye. And that's how you got to do that. I mean, it doesn't come overnight just by watching, you know, just by doing one course. I mean, people leave my workshops and they still have to, now they got to practice, you know, go around your house and like with your fan deck and, you know, how quickly can you match the color of the carpets, a color in your art? How quickly can you do that? Right? Like, you know, I mean, that's what you want to be doing to train your eye to get really, really good with color. You know, when I was brand new, I mean, I didn't have any of these resources that are out there now to help people like choose color. You know, I mean, I remember buying a coffee table book, you know, by Donald Kaufman, who was, you know, a painter. You know, he sells a line of paint now out of New York, but he had this coffee table book full of all his paint colors. And so he had like 50 paint colors. So I ordered the paint colors and then I painfully matched each one to like a Benjamin Moore color so that I could kind of wrap my brain around, because I didn't have Pinterest back then, right? Now you can go online and you can see what all these paint colors look like. I mean, you put in pale oak, I mean, you can get a pretty good sense of it. I mean, yes, some might not be labeled correctly, but you can get a good sense of what pale oak looks like on Pinterest in, you know, 30 seconds.
In fact, these days, I mean, it really is so easy with all the apps that are even out there that you could literally take a picture of your space, and not 100% accuracy, but you could actually literally run it through one of manufacturer's apps and literally pick colors and see them in contrast with one another, accent them, save that image. I mean, there's a lot of ways. But again, the cautionary tale there is be aware that there is no substitute to actually being intimately in contact with the paints and getting familiar with the stuff. But this definitely gets you closer to maybe what you don't like, you know, and eliminate that out of the process. And it is interesting that I still, like I said, a lot of people deal with it as almost at the end of the process, where I think if I was to recommend anything for people as a change of mindset is consider your approach to color early on. Like to your
Yeah.
point, putting that board together, incorporate
That's right.
your paints into that board early on, because what will happen is as you pick other pieces in your design palette that you're going to incorporate into your design, you may actually go back and revise your paint.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, definitely.
Exactly. It's always better to pick everything in advance because then you have much more flexibility with your paint.
Have a, what I call as a path. We're working on the path, we're walking on the path. And as we
Yes.
go down the path, we pick things up, we put things back. So
You know, I
how
also
do you
had a
think
woman
what-
who emailed me
Right.
today, and she said, you know, Maria, like, I've got my sofa, I got my carpet, you know, I just need some accent colors. Okay, can you help me with that? Well, you know, so what that tells me is she's picked, everything is just either all, well, likely not all white, but all gray, right?
Oh,
Everything's gray, and now she wants accent colors. Well, if you've already got like gray curtains, you know, gray carpet, gray sofas, you know, it's too late to throw the fuchsia, the Kelly green pillow in, you know, because you know, your colors should also be incorporated in small, medium, and large gradations of scale so that it doesn't look like you've just, you know, thrown in some cushions and that's it. Like that's just not enough to make a room look pulled together and like the designer was there, right? You need to have like, you know, the Kelly green chair. You need to have some Kelly green and something else. Like it needs to be distributed so that it looks pulled together, right?
Well,
it's too late to just throw it in later.
Yeah, there are times when we cannot help people save themselves from themselves. Like there are times when we just have to say, sorry, I don't know what to do. So with that discussion about journey, thank you so much, Maria, for taking this trip with us. We really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
I learned a lot.
And let's give people the website, and then also let's mention the events that you have coming up, maybe for people if they're interested in basically. I know Bill's looking forward to that November event in San Diego.
Yeah.
Yes, I have my events start in September. So my first event is the week of 9th, 10th, and 11th in Vancouver, and then I'm in DC, then I'm in Toronto, and then let's see. Then I'm in Dallas in November, and where am I? Oh, no, that's right. San Diego is the beginning of November, and then, and then Dallas after that. So 5 locations, fingers crossed that, you know, all goes well in this new world we're in and that I can be there. So I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me as your guest.
Oh, our pleasure.
Maria.
And then that information is on your website at mariakillam.com. So please, everybody, go check it out. I did mention at the very beginning, it's an amazing website. It's got a lot of information. It's a lot of fun and happiness on there. So thanks so much. It was really a pleasure to spend some time with you, Maria.
Thank you very much. Yes, Maria. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.